let's talk about organizational problems with software quality first. So one of the problems that I have observed, well, actually two problems, but the first one is that usually companies, when they released a new version of software, they become very like there's a huge uncertainty involved in that process. So as a product manager, I can speak from personal experience that, whenever there's a new release, a lot of feelings run through my head, anxiety, a lack of confidence. So that's really the key of the problem here. So the software releases is really about, differentiating your business, your companies. So that's why most companies use software, and there's a lack of confidence in that process. So let's talk about it, and then I'll just talk about the second problem later. So the first point that I want to talk about, this is like a very clear shift where software used to be process enablers. So by process enablers, you can think of, spreadsheet applications, for example, Excel. So the word before spreadsheet applications was very different. So when you say spreadsheet today, most people think of Microsoft Excel, but a spreadsheet used to be an actual sheet, a sheet of paper. So if you ran a business, your accountant would just put in all the expenses, and you would get a really detailed picture of how your business worked. But a single human mistake was a huge problem. Yeah. So that is what used to be the case, and accounting used to be a really boring job, And so when the first spreadsheet application hit the market, the game actually changed. So the program could do in seconds what it used to take a person an entire day to do. And a lot of bookkeepers and accounting clerks were replaced by spreadsheet software. But the number of jobs for accountants, surprisingly, that actually increased. And that's a very interesting thing because, well, think about it, with the assistance of the spreadsheet applications, you can actually play the what if game. So what if I do this instead of that? What if I hire more employees? What if I charge a little less for my product? So before the spreadsheet application, humans have to do that. So there was limitations to what humans could do within a limited amount of time, of course. So when the spreadsheet application came, it actually changed the game in that accountants became way more valuable. So that is one type of process enablers, the spreadsheet applications. I think that's a really good example. But process enablers here mean, you're already doing something, and now the applications, the software came, and now you can do it better. So that's process enablers. But there's a shift, like I said, from process enablers to competitive differentiators. So think about banks, right? Now, in 2011, the top banks were racing to provide this must-have feature, which is the mobile check deposit applications. So at that time, this was just a new thing, and not a lot of banks had it, but they were all racing to provide this feature. And just 1 year later, the mobile check deposit became the leading driver for bank selection. So what does that mean? That means that if your bank doesn't have that feature, it suddenly became, a very big problem because it was considered a norm now. So getting a secure, reliable application to market was certainly business critical. So it wasn't just about enabling process anymore. This is about competitive differentiators, and then the financial institutions, and which are banks, who are unable to innovate, were threatened with customer leaving because, well, from personal experience, the bank that I used to use in the past, they had a mobile application, but the experience was awful. So that exactly was why I switched to a new bank with a better user experience. So both banks have mobile applications now, but as you can see, even a improvement in user experience through software was enough to make a customer switch from one solution to another. And in this case, that customer is me. So I wanna give you an example to tell you that there has been a shift from software being process enablers to competitive differentiators. So that's the first point, right? And the second point is that businesses need to understand the risk associated with software. And this is because software failures cost money, and it costs a lot of money. It can cost a lot of money. So an example, so Parasoft analyzed the biggest software failures in 2012 and 2013, and they found that each incident caused a 3% decline in the stock price. Now 3% decline is a huge number if you consider the total market, and it actually equates to an average of 2.15 billion loss of market capitalization. So software failures cost actual money. Now I know that there are a lot of QAs here, a lot of decision makers here, and I just want to remind you that what QAs do is actually very important to the business, and it's an essential thing to release a software that doesn't have any critical issue. And most of the times we take that for granted, but whenever a critical issue happens, we suffer in a very realistic sense. So that's the tremendous loss of shareholder value. And again, the point here is that software costs a lot of money. Software failures cost a lot of money. So business need to understand the risk associated with software releases. Otherwise, they cannot control it. If they can't understand the risk, they can't control it. And so that's a very important thing. And the final point I want to make is that you can kind of see the chain of reasoning here. And the third point I want to make is that it's just difficult for business people to understand the complexity of software development. So if any of you guys here come from a non-technical background, you guys will appreciate this point, because software is very complex and there's a lot of nuances that if you don't understand, it can actually damage your decision making. And so especially for business people, because the expertise is not software development, the expertise is business. That's where they can provide real value. But in a world where software has become a differentiator and the software failures cost money, the gap between the understanding of software that business people have, it has become really important, and it becomes an actual problem for companies and for business. And so these 3 points, I want to link them together and make a case that there is a problem, which is the lack of confidence in software releases. So because business people have a hard time understand software, and whenever software fails, there's a actual cost of money, because software has become very important. There's a real lack of confidence in software releases, both for the business people and for the QAs and for the developers as well, because usually the lack of confidence or the uncertainty spreads within the team or within the companies, and it can be easily felt in that sense. So that's the first point I want to make, which is that the lack of confidence in software releases. So that's the first organizational problem. Well, why is it an organizational problem? Because it affects the entire organization. Because I said, business companies, organizations, they need software to differentiate. And so this problem affects the entire organization, not just individual employees. So that's why it's a first organizational problem. And the second organizational problem is the delayed feedback loop when incidents occur. And I don't have a lot of data point to back this up, but I think this is something that we can appreciate from experience, from at least from personal experience. I can definitely recall times where, we had a new version of the software released, and it contains some incidents, and we were only be made aware of it when the users complain to us. So I want you to recall the last time, your software release didn't go as expected. How soon did you know about it? Did the complaints come from the customers, or was the issues caught in, did you know about the issues beforehand? And how did your customers complain? Was it through the community, the marketing channels, the customer support, or even mail directly to the business managers? Again, from personal experience, I had users who email directly to me, the product manager of the product, whenever there are problems. So, and they have good reasons to, I really appreciate that actions. So before I go to the root cause, I just want to say that the delay in feedback loop here is something that very critical to business, but it actually something that developers can understand as well. So if you think about what developers do, they produce a piece of code, and they want to be able to produce the best piece of code that they can. But usually when they commit to a branch, or when they push their code to the environment for testing, the testing process, if the testing process takes a lot of time, for example, it takes like 4 hours to 8 hours to detect a bug. That's how manual testing can take. That's how long manual testing can take. And so if it takes 8 hours for the developers to be finally notified about a problem in the code, by that time he had already moved on to another issue, to be working on another issue. And so now he had to switch back to the original problem, and the contextual switch is very cognitively demanding, and it actually increases the chance of causing bugs, as well as slowing down the time to actually solve the issues. So again, I just want to give some examples as to how the delayed feedback loop is something that affects the business. It also affects the developers, but it also affects other people in the teams as well, because everyone can appropriately react to a problem if they become aware of it. And that's why the delayed feedback loop is very critical. So that is the two organizational problems that I want to talk about. Again, the first thing is that there's a lack of confidence in software releases. And the second organizational problem is that the delayed feedback loop